So we have as our guest the activist, both for people with disabilities on their behalf and climate activism, Priscilla Garces. And I'd like to welcome you today to Insider NJ, Ms. Garces. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Max, for that great introduction. I just wanted to let everybody know that I did the forum on talking about people with disabilities and how they can form allyships and to provide better support services. And I did this because I feel and I still think that we need more improvement when it comes to the supportive services. And I organized this in partnership with UNESCO for Peace, because I was able to be fortunate to do that. One of the people who I met her name is Rosie Chada. She is one of the people she works in director for UNESCO partnerships in UNESCO for Peace. And I was able to collaborate with her and another person in co-organizing this forum, because we feel that the people with disabilities need help and better supportive services so that they can be able to have those resources and access them. But the most important part is that we all connect by sharing our stories and the different stories. We had 5 different panelists. One of them was from is a professor. The other one is a person from Uganda, and he has also a disability. He's deaf. Another panelist has a problem with neurodiversity. She talked about neurodiversity, which is very common in people with autism and other areas where they cannot process information just like a neurotypical person. So we talked about that, and it was basically an educational forum at an international level, because when we think about it, there are people in different countries that have different types of disability, but yet they don't have the same support and resources.
So the name of the forum is empowering those with disabilities. And listening to you, I'm getting the sense that you provided a forum for people with different disabilities, and getting people with different disabilities to talk with one another. And it is part of the issue not having that exchange, that dialogue, is people with different disabilities are maybe talking to one another, but not talking together.
Yes, exactly. But not only that, it's about educating them, promoting more education in terms of allyships, because one of the key important things that I want to mention is that people with disabilities need the support of organizations. Because if I don't, like in my case, I shared the story in the forum too, because as a person with a disability, I know that organizations are essential when it comes to doing getting support services and the resources. Because if I didn't have the support, yes, I would have the support from my family. Yes, I would have the support from people who educate me and mentors and teachers. But if I didn't have the support from an organization that is oriented to the disability that I have, or that uniquely knows about the resources, then I wouldn't have the technology that I have today. I wouldn't have the resources that I have in order for me to function. And that also applies to all of the other people in different countries that have different disabilities, like hearing impairments, autism, and brain medical issues, chronic medical illnesses, and all those types of disabilities that can significantly impact their lives.
So when you talk about lack of access to resources, are you talking about an international lack, or in fact, right here in New Jersey, are we not quite doing enough to help our residents with disabilities?
Well, since this is an international forum, it's international. Here in New Jersey, we are in a better position than a lot of other areas in different parts of the world, because in the United States, I I am blessed to have the services, but not many people who live in other countries internationally, let's say in Uganda or in other parts of the world, like in Africa or in different areas of the world, that they don't, especially in the areas that are rural, then the people don't have many access to the resources, let alone the economic support or the technology that they need, because uh, the technology for people with disabilities costs money. And if you don't have an organization that have the funds, then you're not going to be able to afford it or get the support, because it involves money too.
Is your sense of the vibrancy of our organizations here in New Jersey coming out of COVID pretty good? The health and well-being of those organizations to which you belong here that are internationally connected?
Well, I think that, the census, in my view, I think that the organizations are doing what they can, with the resources that they have. I mean, the services that I get are pretty good, because, for example, this past week, I got a device that is a e-reader device that is like for Braille, and it's so that people can be able to read in Braille the books. Because when I was a little kid, when I was a young kid, there was no access to the digital Braille yet than I have now, because the technology wasn't available. That was back in the 90s. So when I was a little kid, I had to carry my Braille. I had, let's say, a textbook for science or for math that occupies more than 30 Braille volumes. So that is a big box, and that is heavy. And if I have to do an assignment where the teacher says, okay, you have to go to page 4 or page 5, then or she says, okay, then you have to do this exercise on page 300, then I have to take more than one Braille book or the same subject in order for me to do the assignment. But with this Braille e-reader, I can read a Braille library book, and I can just take a little small device that is no bigger than an iPhone, that has a little Braille display on it, and I can read it.
That's extraordinary. And I'm guessing that there are people who don't have access to this technology around the world, and they're still perhaps in the 90s in a sense. Is that a fair statement?
I would say I think that would be fair enough, because back in the 90s, I have my Braille writer, which is one of the old Perkins Braillers, and it's basically like the manual 1950s typewriter. And you can type on using Braille, but they don't make those anymore. Now they have like the modern, lighter electronic Braillers, which, but the thing is that they are heavy duty. The older one is heavy duty, and I still have it, and I consider that as a relic.
Right.
Because they don't make them anymore.
It's exciting to think that you have that still around.
So that is the involvement of the technology. But the point of the event that I did was basically so that people with disabilities, not only here in the US, but also internationally can speak about not their experience, but also promote an education when it comes to inclusion and inclusivity. And one of the panelists, he talked about inclusivity and the difference between that and inclusion. So inclusion is like, for example, if you said, oh, are we gonna include you in getting in this project? Or an inclusivity is like, okay, we're gonna include this person in this other project, and we can collaborate no matter what accommodations that person needs. So, that's something that he expressed in one of the event, when we talked as part of the panelists, and we were, and his name was Nathan Stenberg, and he is a fellow in the White House.
Really?
And I got a chance to connect with all of the other panelists. The one from Uganda, the one who spoke, his name is Godfrey. So he was able to speak about his experience with the people who are deaf, and how, in his area, they don't have enough resources for people who have different disabilities, like being deaf. So, that goes to show that not only do we need education about that, and we need to tell people about, the inclusion or the inclusivity about people with disabilities, but we also need more cooperation in terms of international support.
What can we do here in New Jersey to help that effort, or to help you in your effort to remain connected?
I believe that we should continue doing the advocacy work that I continue to do the advocacy work that I'm doing. During COVID, I did here in New Jersey, for one of the things I did here was contribute with a group of people with disabilities to pass the Workabilities Act, the workability legislation, which is so that people can be able to work and have more opportunities to work. It's a bill that will allow people, regardless of whether they receive benefits, whether it's SSDI or SSI, and be able to work. No, and also because before you had a cap, you had a salary cap. But with Workability, even though you receive those disability benefits that you are entitled because of your disability, then you can work and have more. You don't have to worry about, okay, do I have to do and work in terms of my degree, or do I just have to stick with if I have to stick with just collecting the benefits? So that is what it was about.